We all know this Tom Cruise, the ultimate romantic hero. The guy who says you complete me, who fights for his family, and who always gets the girl. For decades we've watched him on screen as the perfect husband and the passionate lover. But in real life? After 3 of the most explosive and publicly dissected divorces in Hollywood history, the world's biggest movie star seems to be done with marriage. For good. This wasn't a choice born from simple heartbreak. It was a calculated decision, shaped by a powerful and controversial organization and a deep psychological need for absolute control. Now, Tom Cruise has never actually said the words, "I will never marry again." He doesn't have to. At 63 years old, his admission hasn't come through words but through more than a decade of action. He has meticulously built a life where the institution of marriage looks impossible. This is the story of the deep-seated fears, the catastrophic losses of control, and the unwavering loyalty to a secretive church that led Tom Cruise to silently admit why he'll never walk down the aisle again. To understand the Tom Cruise of today, a man of immense professional control and fierce privacy, you have to understand the boy he once was. Before he was a global icon, Thomas Cruise Mapother IV was a kid living in constant chaos, and the architect of that chaos was his own father. In rare interviews, Cruise has described his father as a merchant of chaos, a bully, and a coward. This was a man who would lash out, creating an environment of fear and total unpredictability. The family moved constantly for jobs that never seemed to stick. By the time he was 14, Cruise had reportedly been to 15 different schools. For a young boy, that kind of life, with no roots, no lasting friends, and no stability, is deeply unsettling. On top of all that, Cruise was battling a secret struggle: severe dyslexia. He said that looking at a page of text felt like a jumble, leaving him like a functional illiterate. He would sweat with anxiety, terrified of being called on in class, knowing he couldn't do something as simple as read aloud. This perfect storm of chaos at home and a private struggle at school is what forged the Tom Cruise we know today. It created a deep, primal hunger for the very things he was denied as a child: order, stability, and above all, control. If your world is always being turned upside down, your greatest desire is to finally be the one writing the script. His ambition wasn't just about fame. It was about escaping the powerlessness that had defined his youth. His acting career was the first step. On a film set, everything is managed. Every line is scripted, every move is blocked. It's a world of perfect order, the exact opposite of his childhood. But a chaotic childhood leaves voids that fame alone can't fill. Cruise was looking for more than just a predictable job. He needed a system, a set of answers, a philosophy that could promise him control over his own mind. In the late 1980s, his first wife handed him exactly that. He just didn't realize that the price of those answers would be every meaningful relationship he would ever have. By 1987, Tom Cruise was on top of the world. Top Gun had made him a superstar. That year, he married actress Mimi Rogers. Publicly, they were a Hollywood power couple. Behind the scenes, something much more significant was happening. Rogers was a second-generation Scientologist, and she was the one who personally introduced Cruise to the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard. For Cruise, it was a revelation. Here was a system that promised to unlock his potential and, most importantly, offered a direct, methodical path to overcoming his dyslexia. Through its study technology, he finally felt he could conquer the jumbled letters that had haunted him. It worked. Or at least he felt it did. And he became a passionate advocate. But what started as self-improvement soon became an all-consuming ideology. According to reports, Cruise's devotion to the church quickly surpassed his wife's. As he climbed Scientology's bridge to total freedom, the church's leader, David Miscavige, recognized his value. They had the most famous young actor in the world as their new poster boy. The marriage fractured. In a now infamous 1993 Playboy interview after their divorce, Rogers claimed that Cruise had considered becoming a monk, which would have made intimacy impossible. Her comment implied a clear wedge had been driven between them, and that wedge was Scientology. The church demands a level of devotion that can clash with any competing loyalty, including marriage. The relationship with Mimi Rogers was the price of admission. It was his first major sacrifice, signaling where his ultimate allegiance would lie. If his first marriage was the prologue, his union with Nicole Kidman was the main event. They met on the set of Days of Thunder in 1990, and for 11 years, were Hollywood's undisputed power couple, adopting 2 children, Isabella and Connor. Publicly, Kidman was supportive. Privately, a very different story was unfolding, according to a mountain of reporting and testimony from former high-ranking Scientologists. Kidman's father was a prominent psychologist. In Scientology, psychology is seen as an evil, suppressive force. Anyone connected to such a person is considered a potential trouble source. If they express skepticism themselves, they can be declared a suppressive person, or an SP, an enemy to be isolated. High-profile defectors like Leah Remini and Mike Rinder have alleged that the Church of Scientology grew to see Kidman as a threat who was pulling Cruise away from the organization. During their marriage, especially while filming Eyes Wide Shut in London, Cruise reportedly drifted from his intense church schedule. This, it's claimed, was unacceptable. In the book, Going Clear, Lawrence Wright detailed chilling allegations of a systematic campaign by the church to break up the marriage, claims the church vehemently denies. These included allegations that Kidman's phone was wiretapped and that a concerted effort was made to turn Cruise against his wife. The most heartbreaking part of this alleged campaign involved their children. After the divorce, Isabella and Connor, who were raised in Scientology, chose to remain with their father and the church, leading to a profound and lasting estrangement from their mother. According to former members, Scientology's practice of disconnection requires severing ties with anyone deemed an SP. Just imagine the pain of that choice. In 2001, Cruise abruptly filed for divorce. Kidman was reportedly blindsided. Who can forget those iconic photos of her leaving her lawyer's office, arms stretched wide in a gesture of what looked like pure liberation? He had chosen Scientology over love for a second time, but this time, the stakes were infinitely higher. The message to any future partner was becoming terrifyingly clear. Either you conform or you will be cut out. The years after Kidman marked a new, more intense phase. Cruise's allegiance to Scientology became the story. His connection with David Miscavige, who was the best man at his third wedding, appeared to be the most important relationship in his life. It was during this period that a truly stunning report emerged. In a 2012 Vanity Fair cover story, journalist Maureen Orth detailed claims of a top-secret project run by Scientology in 2004. The alleged goal? To find a new church-approved wife for Tom Cruise. According to the report, which the church denies, actresses already in Scientology were told they were auditioning for a training film. They were then allegedly asked deeply personal questions about their lives and their thoughts on Tom Cruise. The story alleges that one woman, actress Nazanin Boniadi, was selected. She was reportedly flown to New York to be with Cruise, but the relationship soured after she supposedly offended Miscavige by asking him to repeat himself. For this perceived slight, Boniadi was allegedly punished and cast out. If true, it paints a picture of a man whose romantic life was no longer about chemistry, but a strategic operation managed like a corporation. The search wasn't for an equal partner. It was for a compliant co-star in a movie being directed by the Church of Scientology. After a relationship with Penelope Cruz also ended, reportedly due to religious incompatibility, the search culminated in the spring of 2005 with Katie Holmes. Their romance wasn't a slow burn, it was a supernova. One minute she was the girl next door from Dawson's Creek. The next, she was on Cruz's arm, looking alternately ecstatic and terrified. The relationship felt less like a romance, and more like a relentless PR campaign. Its defining moment came on Oprah's stage in May 2005. Cruise, proclaiming his love, jumped on the couch, grabbed Oprah's hands and dragged a visibly overwhelmed Holmes out to the audience. To many, it looked unhinged. But through another lens, it wasn't a loss of control. It was a demonstration of it. He was so in control of his universe he could shatter the rules of daytime TV. That control allegedly extended to every corner of their life. Reports from the Time detailed how Holmes, raised Catholic, began studying Scientology intensely, constantly flanked by a church chaperone. Her own publicists were reportedly dismissed. Their lavish Italian wedding was a Scientology-centric event, with David Miscavige as best man. It seemed like the ultimate triumph. They had the perfect family, the perfect image. But they made one critical miscalculation. They underestimated the protective instincts of a mother. For 6 years, the marriage held. Then, in June 2012, Katie Holmes filed for divorce. The way she did it was telling. This wasn't a mutual separation. It was, by all accounts, an escape plan executed with military precision. Holmes reportedly used disposable phones to talk to her lawyers, trying to avoid potential surveillance. She filed in New York, catching Cruz, who was filming in Iceland, completely by surprise. The reason, according to source after source, was to protect their 6-year-old daughter, Suri. The fear was that Suri was approaching the age for formal Scientology indoctrination, a future Holmes desperately wanted to avoid. The most stunning confirmation came from Cruz himself. In a 2013 deposition for a lawsuit, he was questioned under oath. A lawyer asked him directly if Katie Holmes had left him, in part to protect Suri from Scientology. His answer was a single damning word. Yes, it was a public admission of staggering proportions. The divorce was settled quickly, with Holmes granted primary custody. The man whose entire life was about control had been completely outmaneuvered. His wife had planned her departure in secret and used the legal system to protect their child from him and his faith. The humiliation was profound. This loss of control was so total that it seems to have convinced him that marriage was a risk he could never, ever take again. In the years following the divorce, Tom Cruise changed. The loud proselytizing for Scientology stopped. The public declarations of love were replaced by a wall of privacy. He continued to be a global superstar, but the man himself retreated into a fortress of work and faith. His relationship with Suri became a subject of sad speculation. While Cruz has visitation rights, they are rarely, if ever, seen together publicly. In that same 2013 deposition, Cruz admitted that Suri was no longer practicing Scientology. This has led many to believe that the church's disconnection policy makes a normal father-daughter relationship nearly impossible, though this has never been publicly confirmed by Cruz. For over a decade, his romantic life went dark. No public girlfriends, no red carpet dates. It's as if he made a conscious choice to retreat from the messy business of love altogether. He chose the predictable success of a film set over the unpredictable terrain of the human heart. So why, at 63, has Tom Cruise, the ultimate on-screen romantic, sworn off marriage? The answer is a culmination of his entire life story. First, there's his psychological wiring. The chaos of his youth created a man obsessed with control. Marriage is the opposite of absolute control. It's a partnership, a negotiation. For a man structured around minimizing unpredictable variables that makes marriage an inherently risky proposition. Second, there is the non-negotiable third person in any relationship, the Church of Scientology. His history has shown that when a choice must be made between a partner and the church always wins. Mimi Rogers reportedly wasn't committed enough. Nicole Kidman was allegedly seen as an enemy, and Katie Holmes used the church's perceived threat to her child as a weapon to dismantle the marriage. The lesson seems clear. It's nearly impossible for an outsider to coexist with that level of devotion. Finally, there is the trauma of the Holmes divorce. It was his greatest loss of control, a public humiliation engineered by the person he thought he had perfectly managed. It exposed his faith to global ridicule and cost him the daily relationship with his youngest child. The risk of repeating that spectacular failure is simply too high. The fortress walls had to be built higher, the drawbridge pulled up for good. It's an impossible paradox of his own making. At 63, Tom Cruise hasn't sat down for an interview and said, "I'm done with marriage." He doesn't have to. His admission is written in the script of his life over the last 13 years. It's in his solitary walks down the red carpet and in the very structure of a life that has become a monument to work, faith, and impenetrable control. He has made a choice. He's chosen the certainty of a movie set over the unpredictability of a marriage. He's chosen the absolute loyalty of his church over the negotiated loyalty of a wife. He's chosen to be the undisputed star, director, and producer of his own life, with no room for a romantic co-lead. The boy who fled chaos has become a man who eliminated it from his world. But in doing so, he has also eliminated the possibility of the one thing his on-screen heroes always fight for: a true equal partnership. Tom Cruise will keep saving the world in theaters, but he has silently admitted he's no longer willing to risk his own.